Today we have a showdown between two of our favorite side-by-sides. We have the Honda Talon 1000X and the Polaris General XP 1000. Let's see which one's the best buy. This Honda Talon is the 1000X two-seater. You can get four-seater configurations of this. And of the two machines, between the Polaris and this Honda, this is the slightly more performance-oriented of the two. So it's not going to have as substantial of a bed here in the rear, and it's going to be a little bit more focused on off-road performance. And these start around $20,400 for this model. The cargo area here in the Talon is pretty compact. We do have a few tie downs that you can use either to directly tie down gear or some accessories to carry gear, whether it's a cooler and some different recovery pieces, whatever you want to put back here. Your maximum load is going to be 299 pounds in the back, and this is a more open space, so this is not going to be so much of a utility side-by-side because of this. Powering the Talon is a 104 horsepower 999cc twin on this. And one of the big differences between these two is going to be the fact that this Honda has a dual clutch transmission. It's a 6-speed.
Now, kicking into drive, I'm going to the manual mode because again, that's one of my favorite things about being in the Talon here, is the fact that I can shift gears and the suspension is good. There's some pretty big dips in there, but you wouldn't really notice it. This is a lot of fun to drive, this Talon, and it's pretty quick, especially because it's a two-seater. Now look, these two side-by-sides are very different. They're spec'd very differently, and that was intentional for us. We didn't get the two of them here at the ranch so that we could compare them. We got the two of them because we like them both for different use cases. This Talon in two-door form is super fun to go bounce off the rev limiter and use on maybe some quicker kind of trail running. So it's a lot of fun, but it's definitely got a different purpose, and that's why I'm not doing a super direct comparison between the two.
Now this Polaris General is an XP 1000, and it's the 4-seat version as spec'd. This one is around $32,000. Now the Polaris General does start at $17,500, and if you want the XP model that gets you a few extra performance options, that's going to start at $24,000, which is much closer to the Talon, but this one, being the Ultimate, has a lot of extra features, so it's much more expensive. Since the General is more of a utility machine, we have a tailgate here at the back of the bed, and you can also do a dump function on this bed, and its capacity is 600 pounds, so double that of the Talon. This General also comes equipped with a hitch that says it's rated for as much as 2,000 pounds. Powering the General is also a 999cc twin, however 100 horsepower, so 4 less, not a big deal. But again, the big difference is going to come down to the transmission. Here it's a CVT as opposed to the dual clutch on the Honda.
Now, I do like some of the technology here on the General. The ride command system is pretty nice to have, but we're going to see a big difference in the way that these two vehicles handle and accelerate, and their character is going to be very different. Now, still a decent push of power from the General here, but it doesn't handle the same as the Talon, nor is it going to accelerate as aggressively because it's so much bigger and heavier in this 4-seat configuration. And that's just a matter of how these units are spec'd out. But it's still a fun handling machine. Credit to these Walker Evans shocks. Also very, very smooth, going fast over uneven terrain here. And it's still a good handling machine even in the 4-seat configuration. So if you want to go have fun, but you want to bring people along, there's really nothing wrong with getting a four-seater in either that Talon or the General. I think it depends on the trails that you want to go on and the kind of driving that you want to do. And I can even go and lock up my rear diff here, so if we peer around the side, then just like that I can exit turf mode, and I'll be spinning both of the rear tires at the same time. That does add a little bit of complexity, but it's nice to have the option if maybe you have a property with some nice grass that you don't want to tear up. That is not the situation for us here at Tumbleweed Ranch.
Outside of utility, one of the most important things on both of these side-by-sides is their suspension setup, because part of the intention with both machines is for you to be able to go out, hit some trails, and have some fun like we'll do today. For suspension, the Honda has Showa shocks, pretty large, and because of that, we've got 14.4 inches of travel in the front, 15 inches of travel in the rear. Compare that to the Walker Evans shocks that are on the Polaris here that give it 14 inches of travel front and rear. So we've got more travel here on the Honda. But a point to Polaris, these are 30-inch tires that come standard on the General versus the 28s that we have from the factory here on the Talon. Now this Talon has a few different driver modes and electronics that I like a lot. We've got a four-wheel drive and two-wheel drive setting here, a launch mode, which is pretty cool, sport mode, and you can switch between automatic and manual on the transmission and use these paddles to take advantage of the fact that this is a dual clutch, so you can row your own gears with these paddles. But as far as technology outside of those couple features, pretty simple LCD screen here in front of you with some dummy lights. Gives you the information that you need, but it's nothing super complicated.
Now we're here at our Onyx off-road pit course. This is a pretty mild course. It's not super difficult, even for some more capable street vehicles, but still a fun spot to be able to test out a little bit of the capability of these machines. And again, they're so different in weight and wheelbase. It's not a very direct comparison, but we've got some side-by-sides, we've got some off-road obstacles, so we might as well do it anyway. And if you do want to go check out some cool trails, then I highly recommend getting Onyx, because they're our go-to off-road navigation software. You can check out different trails in your area, see how difficult they are, see what the trail conditions and weather are. It's really nice. Now I'm in four-wheel drive here on the Talon, going up our holes course, or this trenches course rather. It's an articulating set, and it's an alternating set of holes dug in the ground to test articulation and traction. And this shorter wheelbase Talon, you can definitely feel how short that wheelbase is when you get tipped up sometimes, but it's still very, very capable machine. And as far as faster running, it's nice to have that short wheelbase, make it rotate. And as far as the suspension on this, it's pretty solid. It's definitely a comfortable machine with a lot of travel. Now I'm going to go back into the automatic mode because this can shift itself, and I'm going to power up the logs here. This is going to be a test of comfort for sure. Usually we go up that very slow in a car, but 10 mile an hour up that, not really a problem. So overall, I love this Talon. I think it's a very fun machine. It feels pretty quick, especially with this more compact two-seater. And it's good to drive, but it's definitely not the utility machine that the General is.
Part of the reason for the high price on this XP1000 Ultimate version of the Polaris General is for some of the features that we get, like the ride command system here in the center. It's a 7-inch screen hooked up to some Rockford Fosgate speakers. We also have a set of analog gauges with a screen in the center. And these XP models also come standard with a 4,500-pound winch as well, which is pretty nice. This is also a fairly comfortable interior. We have a padded center armrest here. We've got some nice storage options, so it's a little bit more spacious and practical, even aside from just the fact that this is a 4-seater and that's a 2-seater. Now, in addition to two-wheel and four-wheel drive modes, we do also have a turf mode here on the General, if you're going to be driving on grass that you don't want to tear up.
I do also like about this General that my view out of it is relatively unobstructed. I don't have the nets here, so it's pretty easy to see my surroundings. And I'm gonna go ahead and switch this into its four-wheel drive setting so that we can go up the trenches here. Once again, not a very direct comparison because these two are spec'd so differently, but it's just worth seeing how they act anyway. Now, coming up the trenches, having this longer wheelbase does feel like it adds a little bit of stability, but once again, it has no problem getting up and over. Going down the rocks here in the General, once again, we're not really pushing the capability of these machines at all by doing this, but more so testing their comfort. And they both have a lot of suspension travel and comfort for most off-road situations. And similar to the Talon, we'll use some speed coming up here. And in a lot of ways, I think the comfort is actually pretty comparable. One of the biggest differences between these two, other than the way that they're spec'd, is this powertrain from a driving feel perspective, having the CVT versus the dual clutch, and that's going to be a point of preference.
Now, which one of these two side-by-sides is the best, of course, is going to depend on what you want to do with them and what you're trying to get out of them. Now, I grew up with Polaris machines. My family still has a Ranger that we've had for well over 10 years, and that's been a great machine since we bought it, so I am partial to Polarises, but this Honda Talon and its dual clutch transmission, for me, brings a lot of extra fun to the driving experience, being able to go through the gears using those paddles. I enjoy that a lot. So if it were my money between these two, I'm partial to the Talon, but let me know what you think in the comments below. That's all for this video, just a quick casual comparison between these two, and we'll catch you in the next.